show you another little trick that I learned just by experimenting when you're repairing a blow mold. This is the same candle that was in the earlier one about using epoxy. Still waiting on this to cure enough. And I showed you down on the bottom all the cracks. Some of it I've already welded up. Already welded this long crack. I've got to put a patch on there. And I pulled this piece out and welded it back together by screwing a screw into that hole that was already there and pulling it out and holding it while I welded a couple of spots to hold it out. But on this one on the bottom, right here, you can see there's a big crack here, and then a crack that comes over here, and this is almost cracked all the way back up to this big one. So what I'm going to do is heat the bottom of that, and then I'm going to use this old tent stake that I've bent up to push it up in place and hopefully be able to weld the bottom back together. So what I'm going to do is just hold it right there. And heat this up for just a minute. So just to push this part up, you basically need to heat this whole half of the bottom part because it's got the flex. And the hotter it is, the easier it'll be to push back into place. Let's see what that does. So I've got to go back over here to my light hole. Use that and push up. I don't know if you can see it, but on a crack that size, you have to start over on the side and push it up, and then just tack it, and then move over. I'm going to push over here first and tack that, and then I'll come over here, and then I'll try and push this whole piece up to where I can tack it to that. We'll see how it works. Gotta get this where I can hold it with my left hand. And just basically melt a little bit of each side and push it together and kind of push it in the crack. And that should be enough to hold it, at least that part of the crack. Yep, holding it pretty well. So now I'm going to try and move over here and see what I can do. I may have to just put a patch over this part because I don't know if it's going to move all the way over or not. Got a little bit of it touching right here, so I'm going to tack it. I'm going to have to figure out something longer to use to push this part up. There we go. It's a pretty long crack, so I'm gonna do a bigger spot than when I did on the other side. And you can see it doesn't take but a second to heat it till it's clear, but if you just leave that spot for a few minutes, it'll cool down and whiten back up. You can speed it up by blowing on it. I'm going to come back here in the middle and try and push that up a little. I pushed it up some. Not sure if I'm going to be able to do anything with that gap besides put a patch on it or not. That part right there I'm going to have to put a patch on, and this part, because I think it's too far apart to just weld it back together. So I just wanted to show you how to, sometimes you have to think outside the box. To get things to fit back together. Now I'm just going to go back and weld this part right here where it's touching, and then the end of this crack where it's back together, and then I'm going to try and just weld the part right along there where it's real close together. But like I said, this part and this part in here, I'm going to have to put a patch on. So I'll pause the video, and then in a few minutes when I get through with that, when I start doing the patch, I'll turn it back on. Alright, I've got all the little ends welded up. Now I'm going to start putting a patch across this part. Hopefully the air conditioner is not drowning out too much of my audio, but it's pretty hot out here in my shed. Today in Texas it was 100, 101 where I am. Heat index was about 108, I think, 110. And I'm in a building with a metal roof, so it's quite warm. But basically, I think I've shown this before, you just take your patch and hold it at the edge of the gap, and then start kind of going towards the end of it, scraping off just whatever will come off. It will melt, and you can just kind of gently push it off with the edge of the soldering iron, and it'll pretty much be in place. Just do a little spot at a time. Just kind of go around the edge of where what you just melted is, and heat up the actual blow mold, and it will bond together. A little bit of a gap over here. I'm going to do that one too. Hopefully you can tell what I'm doing. Just kind of melting a little bit at a time. And then when it comes off, just kind of heat the edges, and it will bond together. It's really pretty simple. You just have to pay attention, because like I've said before, if you leave that tip on the plastic, or this red edge right here touches that plastic for just 2 seconds, you'll have a hole all the way through the plastic, and then you'll have to go back and patch that, and that's just more work. So I'm going to kind of do it from the side over here. You just don't get your fingers too close to where you're working the plastic. Just kind of scraping it off, and it will melt as you kind of rub, and then just slowly pull back a little on your patch, and then you can cut it off, and you're left with all this melted part. And then you go back and just kind of gently maneuver it into place. Like I said, heat the edges of the blow mold and kind of smooth it out at the same time, but don't worry so much about that at this stage. Still got a little bit of a gap right there, so I'm gonna turn this around and fill in that last little gap. And then maneuver it into place to fill that gap. I'm going to heat that area around it so that it all bonds together real good. Kind of round that edge a little bit, and that takes care of that spot. I've still got this big crack to do. You can see as it cools, it turns white, and I'll smooth it out a little bit. But since it's on the bottom, it doesn't really matter what it looks like. But still, you want to make it look as good as you can. This doesn't look too bad. I mean, looks like somebody got operated on and has a scar. But considering the only option is to throw it out, because probably in another year that whole bottom would be cracked, because this was already coming over this way. These little cracks would have spread over here. The bottom would have cracked probably all the way around, because this was over to here. This one would have gone right around that edge. So, if you like the video, hit the like button down at the underneath. Subscribe to the channel if you want to get updates when I post another video. Thank you for watching.